Hello. So, this is actually a lie, because it's not about you at all. And what I'm going to talk to you about today is how to write for skeptical modern audiences. In a digital world, I think you'll agree that our audiences are overwhelmed, cynical, tired, bored, not concentrating, distracted. So it's really important for us to talk to them and not at them. And on that note, I'm not going to introduce myself, because it doesn't matter who I am, really. We're not here to make friends. I mean, you guys look very nice. I can see some of you. You look very nice, but you're not really here to hear about me, are you? No? You're here to talk about how to make messages that land. And that's what I'm going to spend our time together talking about today, rather than about myself. I'm going to talk to you about how to make sure that that doesn't happen. Whether you're in marketing, advertising, the digital space, tech, telecoms, media, whatever it is, our audiences are becoming increasingly reluctant to listen, and in many cases to engage back. So what I want to focus on with you for the time we have together is how to craft messaging that they welcome. And the key thing you need to remember, if you take nothing else out of our time together, is this: when writing to any audience for any reason, it's not about you. It's not about your agenda, your perspective. It's not about your company history, how fantastic it is, how credible it is, how many years it's been around. None of that stuff really matters to the audience. Essentially, it's about what they need to know. It's about what your audience needs to know. And the key thing here, guys, even if you're not necessarily in broadcasting or radio, even if it's print or digital, your readership, your usership, your base of fans or followers or whatever they might be, that's your audience. And we need to start giving those people what they want, because what's happened is we've lost sight of who we're speaking to. And who we're speaking to ultimately is the people with the power to take the action that we want to lead them towards using our messaging. So that's what we're going to look at now. And when I say it's not about me, the writer, or you, the content creator or communicator or marketer or strategist, what I mean is it's time to flip that switch in your mind when you craft a message that leaves your organization. I'll give you an example. So let's say the most basic example is writing an email. You know what you want to say, right? And you've got the rough points in your mind, and you open up that new email document, the blank one, and you just start typing. And what you essentially do then is you vomit the thoughts in your mind into the email and bomb it out to the reader. We don't really think about who they are when we do that. We think about what we want to say. And as a result, we tend not to create messaging that is as focused and targeted as it could be. So I want you to flip the switch in your mind that begins with, what do I want to say? And I want you to change it to, what do they need to know? What are the things that I need to tell them to lead them down the rabbit hole of taking the action that I want them to take? So I'm going to quote from the glorious David Ogilvy, who in 1983 said, "When I write an advertisement, I don't want you to tell me you find it creative. I want you to find it so interesting that you buy the freaking product." He didn't actually say freaking product. I added that in because I thought it would be quite effective. He just said buy the product. But the principle is the same. Today, our markets are so over it that they're not looking for pretty, funny. They just want clean, clear, simple messaging that tells them what they need to know. So I've created 5 quick steps because I want to be message focused and I want to give you value that you can take away. And the first one is forget the labels. And this is a hard slide for a lot of audiences that I speak to, because I want you to forget all of those fancy names for things. I want you to forget advertising, marketing, PR, digital, social, traditional. Forget the names, forget what it's called, and just think, okay, what is my message? What do I want my audience to do? What is the key thing? Or what are the 3 key things? And the rule of 3 is law here. It's at most, what 3 things do I need them to know? And then, what do you want your audience to think, feel, or do? they're not stupid, they're just distracted. So you've got to make it explicit. You can't hope that they'll make the logical leap between what you're saying and the ultimate action you want them to take. So it really, really helps to tell them whether you want them to be impressed, whether you want them to feel inspired, whether you want them to believe in something, okay? Or whether you want them to buy. Tell them, make it explicit. Even if your industry is not necessarily sales or marketing or advertising, it's time to start telling them what you want them to do. Step number 2, forget pretty. So a lot of my clients say to me, I'm not a writer, I can't write. And that's okay, because if you could, I wouldn't have a job. But the thing I want you to think about is that the kinds of writing that we are trying to do in the digital world is not poetry, it's not novel writing. You don't have to be talented. You just have to have a reasonably strong left brain and the ability to craft a message, and that can all be learned. There are techniques and tools and all sorts of cool things that can help you to forget pretty and talk to your audience in the language they use every day. So if you can speak, you can be taught to write reasonably well. Remember that business writing for audiences in a digital world is not poetry or novel writing. It's left brain, strategic, outcome-focused, clean, authentic, honest content that speaks to them in their everyday language. Step number 3, interrogate your biases. And this is something that even professional copywriters have to do regularly because we forget. We forget the assumptions of which we operate daily. So I sometimes have to stop as a writer and say to myself, okay, I'm crafting this piece of copy, but who exactly am I talking to now? And it really helps me to create a picture of them in my mind. How old are they? What's their level of disposable income? Where do they come from? How should I speak to them, keeping those things in mind? What style and tone is going to work for this audience? What sort of language do I think will make them feel comfortable? What language do I think they'll appreciate? How will I set them at ease? How will I compel them, provoke them, stimulate them? What do they already know? This is critical because in a digital world, the market is overwhelmed with commercial messaging. So we don't want to waste our resources and time telling them stuff they know already. We want to start from the point at which they already know stuff and give them the stuff they don't know. And then we need to answer that question. What do they still need to know? What's left? And if you can't tell your audience something they don't know, tell them something they do know differently. So there's a lot of content creators creating content around the same stuff, right? And often you're telling them something that isn't rocket science or that they already know. But if you can tell them in a different way, that's something. Step 4, the most important slide. Add value, no bullshit. Your audience can see bullshit coming from 50 feet away. So don't try and schmooze them with fancy words, big language, big promises, vagueness. You also can't oversell. You can't really hard sell or pitch too hard to this audience because, as I said right at the beginning, they are skeptical. So when I say add value, no bullshit, what I mean really is try and add insights to their lives. Give them away, give them IP from your business. Give them free information. Give them opinions, give them thought leadership, give them how-tos. Be relentlessly practical and to the point. And this is a very different way to use content because it means moving away from lofty, very fancy, very sexy sales pitches to giving our audiences content that they can use. And when you do that, when you avoid bullshit, you are working to create trust with your audience. They know that you're not going to bullshit them. They know that you're not going to give them the same vagueness everyone else is giving them. They know you're going to give them insight and value and stuff that they can't get anywhere else. And a lot of my clients find this one hard to understand because I say, if you want to blog, or you want to write a newsletter, or you want to become a thought leader in your niche, don't use that platform to sell. The audience isn't there to be sold to. They're there for free information. Give away your IP. Give them the wisdom that's in your brain. Give it to them for nothing. Let them suck it out of you and love you, and that's how we create trust. This is my ratio. When communicating to the skeptical market, my rule is 80-20. In other words, 80% of your content going to your distracted skeptical audience needs to be relentlessly value-adding, so free advice, tips, how-tos, insights, opinions, really carefully created or curated content, 80% of the time. If you can achieve that, then 20% of the time you can sell to them. But remember, they've got to trust you already. So don't create marketing content and think that that's content marketing. It's not the same thing. We want to be building trust by giving them huge amounts of value 8 times out of 10. And 2 times out of 10, we mention that we have a product that would work or a service that would be amazing. But in the content creation relationship, it should be an 80% free insight situation and a 20% sales pitch situation. And you only earn the right to do the 20% when you've built trust with the 80%. Number 5, you got to chop it. So this is not rocket science, but as you guys know, I mean, we are at the Digital Summit, so as you guys know, the minute we take a piece of print content and we change it to a piece of digital content or web content that's going to be read off a screen, the general rule of thumb is we chop it by half. Okay, so we take the 1-page piece of text, we're going to put it on a LinkedIn profile or a Facebook page, we chop it in half. If we're then going to use it on some form of more instant messaging like Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, you've got to chop it into quarters. In other words, you've got to delete 75% of that content when you start using it on social, because Marks and Nielsen, who are the gods of this stuff, say that 79% of viewers are scanning any new page they come across on a screen, and only 16% are reading every word. So guys, that's almost 80% of your audience not reading everything. And no one's going to succeed in business with a 16% readership ratio. So if you know that almost 80% of your people that you are spending time and money communicating with, if 80% of them are scanning, you've got to start writing for scanners. You've got to keep it really short and really tight, because nobody really cares about that 16%. Often when I give this stat to anyone, they say, what about the other 5%? So the other 5% actually don't read anything. They delete without reading. So that's how I get to the 100. Essentially online, this is not a new statistic, but here it is, just for the purposes of comprehensiveness. You have 15 seconds to give your audience what they want in the digital world. 15 seconds. It's not a lot of time. That's about 30 words, which, depending on your vocabulary, you would battle to fit into a tweet in the old days. So it's really, really short. And you have 3 clicks on a website to give them what they're looking for, otherwise they navigate far, far away down the information superhighway. And remember that there are typically millions of websites out there that can give the audience what they're looking for on your site. So when you have a situation where you want to lead your audience gently from your homepage to your about page and then to your services, maybe through to your products, your gallery, it doesn't work like that anymore. 3 clicks, give them what they want, and let them leave and get on with their lives. Okay, it's not magazine reading. They're not kicking back with their feet up and reading your website. It's a grudge read. Okay? So I really do believe, as you can no doubt tell, in keeping it short. And so the moral of my story is very, very simple. When you have kept it short, added value, when you have spoken to your audience in the language that they use every day, when you have forgotten your own agenda and operated by giving the audience what they need to know in order to take the required action, whatever that might be, once you've done all those things, once you've ticked all those boxes, just stop talking.